Hi church, it's great to be with you again. Well, it's not me that's going to be sharing the word for today, it's Pastor Iain Duthie in Aberdeen. Pastor Iain Duthie in Aberdeen is the leader of Assemblies of God Scotland, and as you know, we're an AOG church, so I thought it would be good for you to hear the leader of Assemblies of God Scotland share a word with us. Now, what's amazing is that last weekend I asked Iain if he'd be able to share a word with us with Full Gospel Church in Dalkeith, and he was happy to do that. Now, Iain didn't look at any of the YouTube videos. He's not been watching any of the teachings that I've been doing with us, but when Iain sent the message yesterday on Thursday afternoon, when I watched it, I thought, wow, this is amazing, because the word that Iain speaks about is all about Acts chapter 27, Paul getting to Rome and the shipwreck that he experienced. So I was really encouraged. It was just wonderful to see Pastor Iain sharing from the same passage and the same story that we've been looking at as a church during these past few days. So I encourage you to listen attentively and to sit back and to relax and to enjoy the word for today. May the Lord bless you, church.
Greetings from the Sunshine Coast up here in Aberdeen. It's my privilege to be in your homes today, and I want to say thank you so much to Pastor Philip and Esther and everybody there at Full Gospel Church in Dalkeith for inviting me to just share and speak to you for just a moment today. It's a real privilege. It is, for those of you who don't know me, it's my privilege to serve as the country leader for Assemblies of God for Scotland. I succeeded my brother-in-law Andrew Smith, who I'm sure all of you know. I was a general practitioner, a GP up here in the city for 20 years, and then now 16 years ago in 2004 succeeded my father-in-law and became the pastor of King's Community Church, and it's my privilege to serve there with a team, and we lead a community of around about 1,000 people who did gather at one time all together, but now are scattered all over online. Married to Elizabeth for 38 years, 5 grown-up children, and 8 grandchildren with 2 more on the way, scattered all over 3 continents. And I have to confess that we've been so grateful thus far for social media and for FaceTime, but who would have thought that our whole world would have changed and now been part of this online existence. But I'm grateful for the reality of being able to communicate in this way. And who would have thought that we'd be navigating through the waters of online church and living in this digital world? You know, as a story that I wanted to share with you just for a few minutes today, just to encourage you and to challenge you and to inspire you to keep on going, keep on building the kingdom where you're at there in Dalkeith. And it's a story from Acts chapter 27. It's a story about when Paul is taken to Rome on a ship as a prisoner. And they set out from the west coast of Israel and thinking that everything's going to be okay. And of course they end up in a storm, and you know the story. They go here, there and everywhere. And they're feeling as though they may well all lose their lives. But of course they end up in Rome as they were planned to be. But the story is from Acts chapter 27, and just the first couple of verses reads like this. It says, "When the time came, we set sail for Italy. Paul and several others prisoners were placed in the custody of a Roman officer named Julius, a captain of the imperial regiment. Aristarchus, a Macedonian from Thessalonica, was also with us. We left on a ship whose home port was Adramyttium on the northwest coast of the province of Asia. It was scheduled to make several stops at ports along the coast of the province." And you know that, as I say, the story unfolds. But there are 4 simple things, I think, that in this season that we're in, as we're navigating through these uncharted waters, in all fairness, for every church, as we're going through what may well seem like a storm at the moment, how good it is for us to learn the lessons that Paul learned on that trip. Lesson number 1 is it's time sometimes for us to leave together. for us to leave where we're at and to step forward into the future that God has for us. Often that's uncertain. Often that's not as we expect. Often it means a whole bunch of upset and change. But we know that when we leave together, we have to together let go of the past, let go of what was, and let go of what the experience has been up to this point. And I guess like you, we're exactly in the same boat of having to let go of everything that we knew, every anchor that we knew, Sunday services, gathering together. It's all gone as we leave together and step forward into what God has. Sometimes I think God has given us a wonderful privilege and an opportunity almost to inviting us to see the future. You know, when Moses said to the 12 spies, I want you to go out and spy out the promised land, the land that I'm going to be taking you. He invited them almost to go and see the future and come back and give a good report. And I guess in this world in which we're now in, this online world, sometimes I think that God is actually inviting us in to see the future, what the future may well look like for the church. And it's our privilege, I think, to come with full of faith, full of expectancy, full of hope in where He's taken us, even in the unknown future, as we leave together and let go of where we've been from. It's not about leaving together, but it's also leaning in together. And it's only just a small band of disciples that went with Paul on this trip. You know, there was Paul, there was Dr. Luke, and there was this guy called Aristarchus. And his name in Greek means best leader. And it's a beautiful picture of the people that you want on your team as you lean in together and go forward. And for all of you in Full Gospel Church in Dalkeith, I know that you'll all be leaning in as much as you possibly can. But if we take a quick look at this guy Aristarchus, he's got some great character qualities that I think we all can learn from. He was one of the ones, I guess, that got saved and his life was changed when Paul and Luke and Silas and Timothy visited Thessalonica in Acts chapter 17. And it says there that he was persuaded, as one of the Greeks that were there, he was persuaded and quickly put his confidence and his trust in the message of the gospel. He quickly put his confidence and his trust into Paul and Silas. And I guess as we lean in together, it's unknown for all of us. And yet, as I'm sure Philip and Esther and David too are praying and seeking God for the direction that they need to go, it's for all of us to put our confidence in our trust in where God is taking us. And I love that. I love that about this guy, that he put his confidence quickly in Paul, but also he was committed to Paul, because it says there that they were, you know the story in Acts chapter 17, they were dragged out of Jason's house and they were accused. And I love the fact that Aristarchus, this guy that we hear about, jumped right in at the deep end and said, I'm committed to you, I'm right there for you, you can count on me. And if we're going to weather the storm, if we're going to navigate the storm, and if we're going to lean in together, then it needs us all to be committed to the journey that God has got us on. I love the fact that Aristarchus, we only hear about him 5 times, that's all we hear. He was content just to be second. He was content just to be a part of the team. We never hear of him striving or creating any hassle. He was just content to be part of the team and to lean in that everything that God was doing. So for us, if we're going to keep on going where God wants us to go, we need to leave together, we need to lean in together, but we also need to look up together. You know, it says in verse 20 that the storm, in chapter 27, the storm was so great that they lost sight of the stars, they lost sight of the moon. For several days, it said, they had no idea where they were going. It may well be different down in Dalkeith, but I know for us up here in Aberdeen, there are times at the moment that I have no idea where we're going. We're trying our best to, as it were, keep on moving forward, keep on progressing, keep on persevering. But if I'm honest, there's so many times I think, I don't know where we're going. And it's at those times, I think, that we need to look up together. It says that that Paul had an encounter with God right in the middle of that storm. And again, it was clear from the conversation that is recorded in Acts 27 that God did 2 things. He came back and reminded Paul of his purpose. He reminded him of his calling. He reminded him of what he was on. It says, you must meet Caesar. And I think God has given Full Gospel Church in Dalkeith a very clear, a very distinct, and a very peculiar, and I don't mean strange, but peculiar, unique to you guys, a purpose that he wants you to fulfill. Never lose sight of that. even in the midst of the storm, look up again and remind yourselves of the calling and the purpose that God has for you. Because when we look up, we're reminded of the purpose, but we're also reminded of the promise. Because in those few verses, God communicated to Paul, and he said to him, no one will be lost in this journey. And I love that. Isn't that fantastic? What a great assurance it must have been for Paul as he tried to communicate to the people around him. And even though it may feel like a storm, even though we can't see where we're going, if we leave together, if we lean in together, and if we look up together, then we can be assured that we'll land together where God wants us to be. And how good it is that it says that of the 276 people that were on board the boat, none of them were lost. I love that. You know, all of us may well go through stops on our journey. We may go through storms. There may be shipwrecks. There may even be snake bites, as we hear about in that extended story. But how good it is that God will ensure that he who began a good work in us will bring it to completion. Be encouraged, Full Gospel Church Dalkeith. Keep leaning in. Keep making sure you step forward into where God has got you going. Keep looking up to him, because he's the one who gives us both the purpose, the calling, and the promise. And be sure that we're going to land together. We're praying for you. We're standing with you. We're there to help if there's anything we can do. The Lord bless you, and look up to him again as he takes you where he wants you to be. All the very best. Bless you.